This is ARIRANG News. It's 2 p.m. here in Seoul. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. The stories we are following at this hour. Foreign ministers from Korea, China, and Japan met over the weekend, but the possibility of a three-way summit happening soon remains slim. The China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank is garnering more international support. Korea is weighing the matter with a decision likely announced this week. And Kuan Yew, known as the founding father of Singapore, has died at the age of 91. World leaders offer condolences to Lee, his family, and the nation. We begin with the Trilateral foreign ministers' talks between Korea, China, and Japan over the weekend. There were hopes that the meeting would pave the way for a summit between the three leaders, but the prospects of that happening appear to be dim. Here's ARIRANG's Foreign Affairs Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee.
Hope that Saturday's trilateral talks could lead to a summit quickly fizzled out when the Chinese foreign minister made some strong remarks against Japan for its distorted perception of history.
Facing history squarely and advancing towards the future is the right attitude to handle historical issues. It's also the only way to push bilateral ties forward and boost trilateral cooperation.
Tangled in numerous historical and territorial disputes, the trilateral talks were the first of their kind in nearly 3 years. Following the meeting, the three top diplomats agreed to work towards holding a summit at the earliest convenient time. But Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi told reporters after the talks that no set timetable was agreed upon and that a proper environment must be created first. Experts say Beijing wants to ensure Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe includes words of remorse in his statement to mark the 70th anniversary of Japan's surrender in World War II.
China intends to wait until August for Japan's position on the issue before reaching a decision on the Korea-China-Japan summit. In that case, a summit won't happen until at least fall.
And with Japanese Foreign Ministry Press Secretary Yasuhisa Kawamura telling Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency that the Abe statement and the trilateral summit are two separate issues, the chance of the three leaders meeting anytime soon appears little more than wishful thinking. Hwang Sung-hee, ARIRANG News.
And with bilateral ties between Korea and Japan at one of their lowest points in recent history, a group of Korean political and economic leaders are trying to mend the frosty ties. They are set to hold talks with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in Tokyo today. Connie Kim has the story.
The 6 Korean representatives, including former Prime Minister Lee Hong-gu, first held talks on Sunday with a group of senior former Japanese officials, including Japan's former Prime Minister Yasuo Fukuda. Today, the former leaders will meet with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to convey concerns about the World War II statement set to be announced in August. There have been concerns that Abe will shift away from the 1995 landmark apology issued by then Prime Minister Domichi Murayama. Abe has said he wants to reflect his government's position in a statement. The participants in Sunday's meeting all saw eye to eye in the need for a comprehensive solution to address the most pressing issue between the two countries.
People have said that a meeting between officials who have been involved in South Korea-Japan relations for a long time would contribute to soothing bilateral ties. By hearing honest opinions, we want to seek a path toward improving relations.
Diplomatic relations between Seoul and Tokyo have been at a historic low, mainly due to Abe's repeated denial of Japan's historic wrongdoings. This year marks the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties. In May, the group will meet again in Seoul to compile a proposal, which they plan to send to President Park Geun-hye and Prime Minister Abe. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
A U.S. defense analysis website has suggested that the answer to the THAAD controversy in Northeast Asia is for China to put more pressure on North Korea to end its ballistic missile tests. Real Clear Defense posted an article titled "Why China Fears THAAD" on Sunday, stating that North Korea's continuing development of various long-range missiles leaves the U.S. no choice but to defend itself. The website pointed out that the U.S. deployed THAAD in Guam after Pyongyang's third nuclear test in 2013. The article says additional large-scale provocations by the North could make Washington reassess its Asia-Pacific strategy and increase interest in deploying the THAAD system. Now, the head of America's Central Intelligence Agency, John Brennan, refused to confirm or deny Washington's involvement in North Korea's internet outage in December last year. In an interview with the U.S. broadcaster Fox, Brennan did suggest, however, that Pyongyang's internet is rickety and faces many of its own challenges. After the massive hacking attack on Sony Pictures in November, the U.S. blamed North Korea and had promised a proportional response. The South Korean activist group, which had planned an anti-North Korea leaflet launch this Thursday, has called off its plan. Park Sang-hak, the group's leader, told Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency on Monday that he won't fly the controversial leaflets at this time. He explained that North Korea's warnings of counterattacks show how much they fear the leaflet campaign. Park said he will end the launches for good if the regime takes responsibility for the sinking of a South Korean warship, the Cheonan, back in 2010. Earlier this month, Park revealed plans to fly 500,000 anti-Pyongyang leaflets and DVD copies of the U.S. film The Interview in time for the 5th anniversary of the sinking of the warship. Now, Kuan Yew, the first Prime Minister of Singapore, has passed away at the age of 91. The nation is mourning his death as he was widely seen as the person who transformed Singapore into a modern and wealthy global financial hub. Here's ARIRANG's Kim Ji-yeon with more.
Singapore's founding father and his first Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew passed away on Monday at the age of 91. His eldest son and incumbent Prime Minister Lee Hsien-loong declared a week-long period of national mourning after announcing the death, saying his father passed away peacefully at the Singapore General Hospital. Lee Kuan Yew was admitted to hospital early last month for pneumonia and had been on life support ever since. For days, thousands of people have been leaving flowers and cards praying for his recovery, but now those messages are filled with words wishing their revered leader farewell. Lee, a Cambridge-educated lawyer, was one of the most influential figures in post-colonial Asia. He's credited with transforming Singapore from a British outpost to a global trading and financial hub in just a single generation. Singapore became one of the world's wealthiest nations during Lee's rule. Its GDP per capita stood at around $13,000 in 1990, soaring up from just $400 in 1959. Even after stepping down as prime minister, Lee was a towering figure behind Singapore's rise into an Asian economic tiger. Last year, the country's GDP recorded over $55,000, Asia's highest and the world's 8th highest. While he is praised for raising Singapore from rags to riches, Lee was criticized by some for his harsh handling of dissenting views to his authoritarian rule. Alongside his market-friendly policies, Lee held strict controls over the press, public protests, and his political opponents. Despite the criticism, a chorus of tributes followed from world leaders, including U.S. President Barack Obama, who hailed Lee as a true giant of history who we remember for generations. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said Lee was a legendary figure in Asia, respected for his strong leadership. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
And President Park Geun-hye also expressed sadness over the passing of Lee Kuan Yew. In a statement, the Korean president sent her condolences to the former prime minister's family and the people of Singapore. She praised Lee's 31-year leadership and credited his insight into the future for having developed Singapore into a global finance and distribution hub. President Park also referred to Lee as a friend to Korea and a leader who made a large contribution to enhancing bilateral relations. Korea and New Zealand signed their bilateral free trade agreement in Seoul earlier today. The signing comes after President Park Geun-hye and Prime Minister John Kee announced the conclusion of their trade negotiations on the sidelines of the G20 Brisbane summit in November. While the two sides have agreed to remove tariffs on most of their traded goods in the next 15 years, they will also boost cooperation on agriculture and fisheries. During today's summit talks, President Park and Prime Minister Kee sought ways to strengthen cooperation in defense, ICT, healthcare, and the environment. Now, China is winning more support for the launch of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank designed to provide project loans to developing countries in the region. The IMF and the World Bank have pledged to cooperate with key allies of the U.S., including Korea, considering their participation. Song Ji-sun has the details.
With some 30 countries on the roster as founding members, Beijing is garnering international support for its Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, set to begin operations by the end of the year. World Bank President Kim Yong-kim said the two organizations are discussing how they can work together, while the leaders of the IMF and the Asian Development Bank said they would be happy to cooperate with the new regional lender. Beijing has previously indicated that the new AIIB would seek to complement, not compete with, the existing international institutions. However, Washington has cautioned other countries against joining, citing concerns about transparency and Beijing's increased influence in the region. The U.S. recently proposed co-financing project with existing development banks, saying it welcomes new multilateral institutions that strengthen the international financial architecture. Meanwhile, Washington's key strategic allies in the region are considering joining the AIIB. Japan and Australia have shown interest but have yet to decide, and Korea is expected to announce its decision this week before the AIIB's deadline of March 31st. Seoul is reportedly seeking a share that's high enough to allow it to participate in decision-making. China has offered to fund 50% of the $50 billion fund. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News.
In this week's Industry Insight, we take a look at Korea's financial sector, which is lagging far behind many of the country's other sectors. Financial firms in the nation are advised to stop pursuing easy profits and start thinking outside the box. Here's ARIRANG's Hwang Ji-hye.
Korea's financial industry remains relatively underdeveloped compared to the overall competitiveness of its economy. It's been more than a decade since Korea first expressed desire to develop its financial sector, but surprisingly, it's still at about the same level as Uganda and even lower than Colombia and Ghana. So what's been pulling back progress?
When Korea's new chief financial regulator took office last week, he sharply criticized the industry, saying it's only interested in generating easy profits by raking in the interest it earns from lending to investors. He said the banking sector is ignoring its duty to invent new markets and products. Korea's record low key interest rate also indicates that relying on time-honored sources of income is no longer going to cut it. Korea is considered a financial no-go zone for many foreign banks, with big names like HSBC closing its retail business unit here and Goldman Sachs closing its asset management unit a couple of years ago. A former central bank executive who was also in charge of the Financial Stability Department says the withdrawals are clear examples of why the Korean banking sector is struggling.
They leave because of the regulation, ring-fencing behavior. Korea-specific regulation, which does not exist at their home country.
While pundits call for measures to tackle such issues, they add that more attention should be focused on developing the country's capital market. That by, for example, allowing more authority for brokerage firms in terms of fees, interest rates, and dividends.
Korea's financial industry has been riding on the back of the banking sector for so long. To ensure we take the next step forward, the government should create an environment where the capital market and the banking sector can coexist.
Analysts also say that the chopping and changing of economic policies under different administrations is why Korea's financial sector has lost its way over the past 10 years. So it's crucial the entire system starts pursuing new and creative plans to take it to the next level. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
In the year 2012 for Korea was at its record high.
All of the day's important events close to home and around the world. Join Laah Hyun-kyung live from Seoul.
Shopping market thinks the true meaning of creation shines through. Korean lawmakers are once again calling for more stringent safety measures following a fire at a campsite in the western city of Incheon that killed 5 people. Representatives from the ruling Saenuri Party and main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy say recently introduced facility safety checks and safety education guidelines have to be strictly followed and enforced. They said despite efforts to boost safety following last year's Seoul ferry accident, the tent fire tragedy shows Korea still has a long way to go. In light of the fire in Incheon, the Seoul metropolitan government is conducting safety inspections at 10 camping sites in the capital today. In a bid to help Korea's small and mid-sized companies sell their products to foreign customers online, the government is developing strategies for targeting specific overseas markets. Online transactions will be simplified too after card companies scrap ActiveX, a mandatory authentication program, by the end of March. Kim Min-ji has more.
Online shoppers in the U.S., China, Japan, Vietnam, and Indonesia are the targets in a new government strategy to increase foreign spending on Korean shopping websites. The countries were selected based on their number of online transactions as well as their market size. Under the plan, products, marketing campaigns, payment, and delivery methods will be shaped to meet the preferences of each international market. This comes as the online transactions market has been growing, but small and medium-sized companies have not been able to take full advantage of the growth as they lack the ability to customize sales for specific overseas groups. And in a long-awaited move that will make online shopping a lot easier overall, major local card companies will discontinue the ActiveX plugin starting this week. Until now, it's been a must-have for shoppers making a purchase of over 300,000 won, or roughly $270. ActiveX was initially implemented to enhance internet security, but was often criticized for being slow and having poor web compatibility, limiting access to online shopping. The change will make buying online much simpler and let online shoppers use internet browsers other than the current Internet Explorer, such as Chrome or Safari. Card companies will replace the ActiveX software with an exe file, which users will only have to download once regardless of the browser they use, or launch alternative payment programs. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
As it is for many students around the world, one of the reasons why people go to university in Korea is to find a better job. But with a limited number of openings for quality jobs, both college and high school graduates are struggling. Son Jung-in has this report.
Korea is suffering with the worst youth unemployment rate it has seen in 15 years. And the situation doesn't get any better for those with a higher education. As a matter of fact, it's now more difficult for those armed with a college degree to enter the workforce.
I sent my resume to over 70 different companies, but I failed to get a job. Only 8 of them called me in for an interview.
Last year, the unemployment rate for college graduates outstripped that of high school graduates. According to the LG Economic Research Institute, the jobless rate of those with high school diplomas fell from 9.1% in 2005 to 8.9% last year. However, that of college graduates surged from 6.2% to 9.6% over the same period. And among the college graduates who are lucky enough to get a job, nearly 1/3 of them received a lower average wage than high school graduates.
With an overflow of college graduates and workforce, more are opting to compromise by taking jobs that don't require a university degree. This trend is steadily degrading the quality of the labor market in Korea.
It may seem like the situation for high school graduates has improved compared to college graduates. Still, the positions they end up getting are mostly low-skilled jobs in the service industry. So whichever way you look at it, Korea's young people are facing a job crunch regardless of their education level. 손정인, ARIRANG News.
Last year, Korea's leading architect took home the prestigious Golden Lion Award for Architecture at the Venice Biennale. Our Im Yuni has information on how you can see the award-winning piece now that it's finally on view in Korea. Good afternoon, Yuni.
Good afternoon, right? So this is the first time a Korean architect has taken home this very prestigious Golden Lion Award at the architect portion of the Venice Biennale. Now, Cho Min-suk's Crow's Eye View, the Korean peninsula, is now has landed here in Seoul, and it's available to see if you missed it in Venice. Take a look.
Since the division of the Korean peninsula in 1945, the two Koreas have continued on very different paths. The differences can be seen in all aspects of life, but particularly in architecture. Korea's leading architect Cho Min-suk examined the contrast between the two Koreas in his Venice Biennale exhibit, Crow's Eye View, the Korean Peninsula, which took home the prestigious Golden Lion for Best National Participation.
The theme of the exhibition is Seoul and Pyongyang and the contrast between their capitalist and socialist systems. With the ongoing division and lack of exchange, the two countries don't know each other very well.
Through miniature-scale reconstructions, pictures, and even videos, the pavilion offers a unique perspective of history, especially for South Koreans who are not permitted to visit the North.
Because of the division, we don't really understand the architecture of the North. Our reality is represented by the idea of the crow's eye.
100 years of history can be preserved through many different forms. But in this pavilion, the progress of a century is visible through the contrasting buildings made by the two Koreas.
So the exhibition contains works from many artists, not just Cho Min-suk.
Right. So at the Biennale, they have many different national pavilions, and the Korean pavilion is the one that was curated by Cho Min-suk, and it has a compilation of many different works from many different artists, so all different artists analyzing the aspects of the architecture and as it developed over the past 100 years. But what's really important to note with this exhibition is that it's not a complete analysis, but it is the first to go in-depth with this kind of architectural aspect of the two Koreas. So it's a very interesting look at the history.
So Cho Min-suk, you did briefly mention that he was the curator at the Biennale, but here we are seeing other curators there. But tell us more about Cho Min-suk. He's more recognized as an architect.
Exactly. So he is the mastermind behind one of Korea's leading architect firms, Mass Studies, and they're really responsible for all these very experimental, very creative works where they take on this the past and the future. They want to go to the place where different opposite ends meet and where they clash. But they really have very unique approaches to architecture. They have they've had tons of awards and tons of recognitions for their work. Now, this is one of Korea's leading architects and architects firms, so definitely someone to look out for.
Okay, all right. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today, Yuni. Thank you very much for coming in and sharing your story with us.
It was my pleasure.
Hello, Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. After a week of warm weather and temperatures soaring into the 20s, we began the day under a cold spell with temperatures back into the teens, and we also have cold wind that has pulled down the wind chill down to 5 degrees Celsius here in the capital. Now, this is all due to the cold air front from the north that's moving through the country. The sky is also expected to stay clear today, and air quality levels are expected to be decent as well. Now, dry weather advisories and warnings have been issued for most parts of the country. Now, the windy conditions make a fire danger, so make sure to be extra careful. Now, with that in mind, let's have a look at the readings for today. Seoul will peak up to 11 degrees this afternoon, while the southern regions such as Gwangju and Busan will top to 13 and 14 degrees. Moving over to other regions, Jeju Island gets up to 12, Dokdo hits to 7, while Mount Kumgang be sunny at -1 degrees. That's all for now, Michelle Park, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
And that's a wrap from us at this hour. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung in Seoul. Another edition of ARIRANG News with me coming up at 4 p.m. Korea time.